The UN Security Council has adopted a U.S.-drafted resolution supporting President Joe Biden's ceasefire plan in Gaza.
It was passed with 14 votes in favor and Russia abstaining. Hamas welcomed the move, adding it'll work with mediators on implementing the plan, though it hasn't formally accepted it.
Well, the truce proposal includes the withdrawal of Israeli forces from parts of Gaza and the release of a number of hostages in the first phase. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in the region to urge both Hamas and Israel to formally accept the plan, de-escalate tensions, and hopefully bring the war to an end. For more, let's speak now with Professor Mohammed Abu-Nimer. He's the chair of International Peace and Conflict Resolution at the School of International Service at American University. Professor Abu-Nimer, thank you very much for your time. Firstly, I want to get your reaction first to the latest passage of the ceasefire resolution at the UNSC, with Hamas signaling now the cooperation. It looks like the ball is in Israel's court. Just how optimistic are you that this could pave the way for bringing an end to the conflict, at least temporarily?
Well, thank you. Thank you for asking me. I think, in general, as you said, this is a good step. And I think, although it is too late in the sense of 9 months of massive killing and massive destruction on the war in Gaza, nevertheless, this should have been done back in November, October, or even in March when there was another vote there. It's a good step because I think it has several components that Hamas and I think the Israeli government can work with. At this point, we know officially that Hamas have diplomatically welcomed the initiative and said that some of especially the components that they were interested in, yet we have not heard from the Israeli official government formal acceptance of it. And obviously, after the withdrawal of Gantz from the war government, or war committee, I guess, there is more a threat to Netanyahu to accept such a proposal. I hope we're going to see a clear acceptance from the Israeli side, which will pave the way, hopefully, for more serious negotiation to start the ceasefire immediately.
Professor, this U.S.-sponsored resolution has 3 phases: the return of hostages, a permanent ceasefire, and also longer-term reconstruction. Now, if either side wanted to find fault, which one is going to be the most problematic for them?
That's a great question. The primary issue continue the obstacle on the permanency of the ceasefire. To what extent the U.S. government and Israel and the neighboring countries are going to be able to guarantee that the ceasefire will be permanent and that Israel will not launch its war again by killing innocent civilians in Gaza and continue its destruction and the genocide campaign. And that has been the primary request of Hamas from the beginning, so they do not repeat the same deal that they have had with the Israeli military before, and the war resumed even with more fierce destruction. From the Israeli side, I think the fault is the withdrawal of the all Israeli military from Gaza, and no change of territorial or demographic composition of Gaza. That definitely is not going to sit well with the right-wing religious ultra-nationalist group that Beni Gvir and Smotrich, who are the right-wing partner of Netanyahu. And I think that will be a big obstacle to do that.
Professor, all this is coinciding with Mr. Blinken's visit, who is expected to meet with Mr. Gantz as well during his visit. Why do you think he's talking to someone who is no longer in the security cabinet, and how would his departure change U.S.-Israel dynamics?
Well, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, within the Israeli politics, Netanyahu has been held in many ways as hostage and forced or accepted the condition imposed in him by the ultra-right religious parties who are part of his government. Having Gantz in that war cabinet allowed Netanyahu to rely more on him and less on the other group. Now that Gantz is out, everyone expecting some development regarding, closer time for election, some more pressure from outside. And second, most important, it's a given that Netanyahu political career will end after this war and the election. The prospect for his re-electing are very, very small compared to Gantz and also other Israeli leaders in the opposition. And I think that's part of the continuous conversation with Gantz and Lapid and other from the Israeli opposition. They have influence and they have leverage in the Israeli public as well, and they most likely will be the replacement of Netanyahu in the next election.
Okay, so that's a little bit down the road, Professor. I just want to bring you back to the president, if I may. We talked about the resignations of Benny Gantz and also Gadi Eisenkot. There's also that hostage rescue over the weekend. I'm wondering how all this will play into this latest Security Council effort to stop the fighting.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning this again. It's really mind-boggling that Israel and the U.S. and other their allies will celebrate the killing of 1,100, the killing and injuring 1,100 Palestinians to rescue four Israeli hostages, and at the same time also cause the death of another three two Israeli and one American hostage who were killed in that. That's the type of position that the American government has taken as in many ways part of this war, because they also aided and supported the mission to rescue the hostages, which in many ways reduces the credibility and legitimacy and even the sincerity of the Blinken visit to the region, where trying to act as a sincere mediator or trying to bring parties together. Yet on the other hand, they have U.S. government have had a strong role into this. Again, this is the type of complication where, despite the talk for negotiation and the talk for a deal and ceasefire, we witnessed the massacre of 274 Palestinians within a few hours, without any protection, without any justification whatsoever of killing those civilians. And that's unfortunate. It raises more level of frustration, level of really animosity against the whole process of negotiation. And it really dehumanized the Palestinian more and more, something we have seen since the beginning of the war on Gaza, that the life of the Palestinian, is less even than human, and this dehumanization narrative and discourse is only strengthened by such mission. Finally, on this issue, the Israeli political party opposition have already said that, although they have released 4 hostages and brought them back to Israel, nevertheless, this is going to be more difficult in the future. It will affect the fate of the other hostages with Hamas. And also what it means that the only way to end this war is by having a negotiation and a deal to release all the hostages and all the Palestinian prisoners, over 8,000 Palestinian prisoners who sits in the Israeli prisons. 4,000 of them have been arrested since October 2023.
Yeah, Professor, okay, before we let you go, we have about a minute on the clock right now. You earlier touched on the probability of election taking place. Just how long can Prime Minister stretch this out? And do you think he has an exit plan? If so, what could that be?
I wish I had. I wish I had the capacity to predict that. We've been saying since the beginning of the war in Gaza, with the genocide campaign and with the ethnic cleansing, with all the the killing of Palestinians, that this cannot happen. But eventually, with the international community, particularly the U.S., Germany, France, and UK, continue to provide Netanyahu and his government with a green light to continue with this. I think this can continue for a long time. The discussion in Israeli cabinet war says this might take a few more months or 6-7 more months. No one knows, but we know for sure that the key to stop the war is in the United States government administration, by using not only the soft diplomacy of trying to pressure and then allowing Netanyahu to ignore all the red lines that President Biden has declared them every time. So it's time, and it's too late even to take some tangible measures, sanctions, whether military, economic, something like what the American government have done in 1989 when they forced Shamir, the prime minister then, to come to the table for negotiation by using the aid, something that have been used to threaten by cutting the aid to the Israeli military, to the Israeli economy. That's something I think have not been put on the table.
Understood. Professor, we do have to leave it there. We thank you so much for your time and for sharing your thoughts as well. Professor Mohammed Abu-Nimer from the American University.